unresolved issue of the real-time bomb in Aceh. For 3 decades, between 1976 and 2005, Aceh had become a killing field for the Indonesian armed forces. The atrocities perpetrated through these years have no equal in the history of Aceh, fighting against any colonial powers in the past. Crimes against humanity, such as extrajudicial killings and disappearances of thousands of civilians, had become commonplace. An estimation of 30,000 civilians had lost their lives in military custody, in hidden mass graves, or in secret concentration camps. 17 years ago today, all eyes were glued to this majestic building behind us that unfortunately is under construction, the government banquet hall, Helsinki, Finland. And the world breathed a deep sigh of relief that one of the longest armed conflicts in Southeast Asia had eventually ended. A Finnish NGO by the name Crisis Management Initiative, under the chairmanship of President Matti Ahtisaari, had successfully mediated between the Free Aceh movement, GAM, and the Republic of Indonesia. That took place here on August 15, 2005. Thanks to CMI, the European Union, ASEAN, and all others, including the United Nations, for having contributed to the success. 17 years on, despite the promises to implement the deal, successive Indonesian governments have deliberately dismissed a number of important clauses, such as Trust and Reconciliation Commission, Human Rights Court, and dozen other articles stipulated in the deal. As a result, this has been a lost period for the people of Aceh, especially for tens of thousands affected by the conflict. Whereas the international community regards this case as a closed chapter with a happy ending, yet it is an antithesis to what Acehnese have experienced all these years. Aceh's abundant natural resources are still being unlimitedly exploited by Jakarta, despite the current agreement promises Aceh to retain 70% of its share. With regard to protecting human rights and addressing past abuses by the military, not a single perpetrator has been brought to justice. Not a single culprit has been accounted for. Today, August 15, 2022, Acehnese diaspora in Scandinavia have gathered here in front of this building to declare to the whole world, particularly those involved in the peace process, that the so-called Memorandum of Understanding signed here by the two parties has failed. It is dead. It is buried. This agreement per se is by no means to be blamed, but the disgraceful behavior of some stakeholders, particularly the Indonesian government and its military, is the greatest part of the reason for concern. And to this very day, Jakarta still regards Aceh as a potential threat to its territorial integrity. In the early years after the peace deal was signed, the military had been continuously trying to return to Aceh. First, to resume its illegal business activities, because Aceh is one of the most lucrative areas for such illegal income. Secondly, to try to regain its dual function again after they had lost it to the Helsinki Agreement. In the era of modern civilization, a systematic approach to militarism is no longer feasible. But that is not the case for Indonesia. In many cases, the Indonesian military frequently resorts to using methods that lead to a threat and intimidation. As a former Dutch East Indies colony of a continental size, Indonesia is the only colonial power on this planet that has never been decolonized properly. Just 2 weeks ago, 15 so-called suspect terrorists were arrested by the anti-terror census 88 in several districts in Aceh. No independent investigation has ever been conducted to verify the incident. As to date, nobody knows their whereabouts. They just disappeared without a trace. This kind of arbitrary arrest have become a commonplace in post-Helsinki Accord. Though on the surface everything seems calm and conducive in Aceh, but the true situation now is simmering. It is just a calm before the storm. This year, more than half of Indonesian provinces, including Aceh, will be led by interim governors until the elections in 2024 are held. Last month, Jakarta appointed General Ahmad Marzuki as interim Aceh governor for a period of 2.5 years, and he was former Aceh military commander in 2020. His appointment has fueled a mountain of concerns about the lack of transparency and military involvement in the process. Because one day before the inauguration, he was still an active military. In return, he is to appoint around 15 head districts in the entire Aceh. Some of them already appointed to have come from the State's Intelligence Bureau or BIN, such as in KD region. By now, the military has been brought back into civilian governance, reinstituting the Suharto era of Babinsa. Junior officers assigned to villages and promoting military involvement in non-security related functions. And its current activities in towns and villages have exceeded its dual function, penetrating deeply into the economic and social sectors. By definition, today's Aceh is completely in the iron grip of Indonesia's military junta. ASNLF has repeatedly warned the stakeholders of the situation in the post-MOU Helsinki that a condition where the basic rights of the Achenese are still far from being established. A peaceful, comprehensive, and sustainable solution to the conflict with dignity for all as stated in the preamble of the MOU is only an empty slogan to manipulate the Achenese into acceptance of autonomous status. The question of Aceh is a political and legal matter, and it is deeply grounded in history, international law, and convention. As peace itself is a process, justice must be upheld by addressing the root causes of the conflict through the principles of the right to self-determination of the Achenese, and resolving past abuses by the military during the conflict as mandated by MOU. Unfortunately, none of this has ever been executed in Aceh. Aceh has a long history of resistance toward occupation. The application of intimidation and violence has never been able to break the Achenese pride and love for freedom. With the Helsinki peace euphoria has long ended and its spell has totally broken. The return of Achenese national awareness is evident. So the unresolved issues are now the real time bomb in Aceh. Should this already tense situation escalate further that leads to violence again, then it is Indonesia alone and its apparatus in Aceh to bear responsibility. Thank you. Aceh Merdeka! Aceh Merdeka! Aceh Merdeka! What do we want? Free! What do we want? Free! What do we want? Free!